Martin Luther, in 1517, a Roman Catholic monk, nailed what are called the 95 Theses. These were problems that he had with the selling of indulgences on the church door in Wittenberg, Germany. From that, he created a firestorm, a reformatory firestorm in which people were seeking to come out of the grasp of the Roman Church. In 1521, he went to trial at what was called the Diet of Worms. The Diet was a place where they had all of his books that were there, the things that he had written. They had the Catholic prosecutors that were there, and King Charles V sat as the judge of the entire trial. They pressed him to recant everything that he had written. When they pressed him to recant, he said, "You know what, I need to think about it one night." The reason why he had to think about it was because it was a death sentence from the Pope if he did not recant. They had burned many people at the stake for things that he had said. He came back the next day and he said basically this. He said, "I cannot nor will not recant of anything that I have written. Unless," he said, "of course, God directs me to do so, because," he said, "I stand upon the Word of God, and here I take my stand, so help me God, amen." When that was stated, he really wrote his death sentence with the Roman Catholic Pope and Charles V. They ordered him to go home, and they would take care of it shortly. As he was on his way home in the carriage, his carriage was stopped by robbers, apparently, and there was a man by the name of Frederick the Wise, who actually was a powerful individual politically, who had men stopping the carriage, and they kidnapped Martin Luther, and they took him to the castle at Wartburg. And there he was told, he said, "Take off your monk's outfit, you put on the outfit of a knight, and then you portray yourself as simply an individual." So he did so, and he stayed in a cell, and you can see even today the cell is just a small little cell, a table. And he was troubled by what was taking place. He had family outside, but he knew that there was a death warrant written already for him if he emerged from the castle. In those dark hours, he would say to his friends who were with him, he said, "Come, let us sing the 46th Psalm." Let's sing the 46th Psalm. Later, it was in 1527, when after he had escaped the grasp of the Catholic Church, he was now at home, and there was the Black Plague that had affected all of Europe. Many thousands upon thousands of people died. His own home was turned into a hospital. And he had a 1-year-old son by the name of Hans, who now was afflicted by the plague and looked like he was on the verge of death. But he would say to his friends, he said, "Let's sing the 46th Psalm." And the song that we just sung was written in reference to the 46th Psalm. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present, that means accessible, very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be moved and the mountains be shaken into the heart of the seas. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, and the mountains tremble with the swelling thereof. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. God will help her in that right early. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved, but he uttered his voice and the earth melted. Jehovah of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. So Martin Luther wrote the song, A Mighty Fortress, with reference to Psalm 46, the song that we just sung. Let's move attention for just a moment back to 701 BC. In 701 BC, in the small kingdom of Judah, there is a good king by the name of Hezekiah, God's man sitting on the throne. He is a righteous king, which is, of course, few and far between in those days. A righteous king, Hezekiah. Hezekiah has just witnessed in 722 the destruction of the northern kingdom. You recall that the kingdom split about 900 years BC. And there were 10 tribes in the north, and there were 2 tribes in the south. Actually, it was only one, because Benjamin was actually amalgamated into Judah. So Judah is all that's left. It was called the kingdom of Judah, a small little state, as big actually about the size of a county, the size of Wichita County. The northern kingdom has just been smashed by the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians come from Iraq territory, almost deja vu, isn't it? What's going on right now today, but they came from Iraq. And the Assyrians, as one writer put it, they swept all of the peoples before them as so many dry leaves before a storm, but they were to be feared. They would set them out on sharp stakes. They would flay their skin alive. They would assassinate them. They would torture them. And so the Assyrians were people to be feared. Sargon, number 2, was the king of Assyria that destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel. Samaria was completely destroyed, and that was in 722. Hezekiah, as a boy, was able to see that. That would be like from here to Lawton, Oklahoma. And the Assyrians absolutely destroyed it, and they took all of the people to captivity, and they repopulated the territory with foreigners. Not only so, but Hezekiah now himself is threatened by the Assyrian Empire. This is an interesting sidebar. The 10 northern tribes that went to captivity were really lost to history, but they were not lost in the sense that they remained an entity in and of themselves. They were simply mixed among the peoples, and they lost their identity as a people. Now, there were some, a very small remnant, as the prophets would say, there was simply a small shoot that would come out of a stump. That's all that you were going to have left. That's all that were left. And some representatives from the 10 tribes would go back, actually, from the northern kingdom when Nehemiah rebuilt the city walls in the time of Ezra. I say that because many people speculate with this century and reaching back, for example, to the Book of Mormon, who speculated that the 10 northern tribes remained a separate entity in and of themselves, and they came to America, and they are the forerunners of the American Indian. That, of course, is so much nonsense. No, they were lost to history, and that's what God says was going to happen to them. There were only a few people that were left, and Hezekiah knew what was in store for Jerusalem, the capital, which was a walled city, as well as the territory of Judah that he ruled. The son of Sargon, number 2, was just as ferocious as was his father, and his name was Sennacherib. Sennacherib's name means the moon god has many brothers. And Sennacherib came once again with a mighty Assyrian army sweeping westward, and they're going down toward Egypt in order to fight the Egyptians. Sennacherib surrounds the city of Jerusalem, and Hezekiah, in desperation, strips all of the gold and silver out of the temple, and he sends it as a payment of tribute to Sennacherib, and Sennacherib agrees that he will leave Jerusalem and Judah alone, even though he'd already captured many of the walled cities. Now he goes south by southwest, that is Sennacherib does, to a small city. It's actually a walled city in and of itself called Lachish, Lachish. As a matter of fact, we have the letters that the sentries on the walls of Lachish wrote to Libnah and other cities about them as they looked at the fire signals on the different hills and mountains, and they were telling each other that the Assyrians were encamped in the valleys. And one of the letters says, I just watched the fires go out. That is, the city itself would be exterminated. It was a frightening time. Sennacherib surrounds the city of Lachish, but now he realizes with a change of mind, he sends back an army, a contingent of his army, and he breaks his treaty with Hezekiah. Isaiah, who is a contemporary and an advisor, Isaiah the prophet, an advisor to Hezekiah, writes about this in Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 8. He says that Sennacherib is one who breaks his treaties, and he has no regard for the witnesses, that is, those who are witnessing the treaty that was made. And he comes back with a contingent of his army, surrounds the city of Jerusalem, and demands their immediate surrender. And it would be that they would surrender, and he would send them away to a foreign nation as captives, fugitives, but they would save themselves alive. Otherwise, it would be certain and torturous death. So he sends his army back, and he has several officers that come toward the wall in order to make a parley or have an agreement with some of Hezekiah's men. And they are, number 1, the Tartan, who is the commander-in-chief. There's number 2, the Rabshakeh, who is the chief captain, and the Rabsaris, who is the chief eunuch. And they come forward out of the army of Assyria close to the walls of Jerusalem in order that they might have a parley and they might cause Hezekiah to surrender. Hezekiah sends out from his own city Eliakim, who is said to be the chief prince, Shebna, the scribe, and Joah, the recorder. It is probably to Joah that we are accounted, or that we rely upon for his historical statements regarding what was actually taking place in this association and in this parley that took place. But let's stop for just a moment and think about something as we think about Sennacherib. Sennacherib is one indeed to be feared. He had the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. It is no longer just a small nation such as the country of Syria, Damascus, but it was a huge territory spanning the rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. It was a gigantic kingdom whose capital was in Nineveh. And we're able, as archaeology has been able to do, to go and uncover much of what is done there. And we can read the annals of Sennacherib himself. He even makes a statement. He said, I shut up Hezekiah like a bird in a cage. It is interesting. He does not say he takes Hezekiah, and that's the rest of the story in just a moment. I shut up Hezekiah like a bird in the cage. You will see in the bas-reliefs, that's a French word I've discovered, and it really, I suppose, is pronounced this way, bas-relief, but it's a bas-relief, which we would say in English, and the bas-relief of Sennacherib has a mighty king seated on his throne with rich tapestry around him, slaves standing around him. He has in his right hand arrows, in his left hand a bow. He has a pyramidical crown on his head with rich jewels on it. It has the lappets on the side of it. Then he has long black locks that flow down on his shoulders and a big black beard that is tightly rolled. He has also a big barrel chest, and he is one who is to be feared because he is the king of the entire world, Sennacherib. And when he comes up toward the walls, or his ambassadors do, Sennacherib himself stays at Lachish to oversee the besieging operations. And his officers come to the walls of Jerusalem. Isaiah writes and tells you exactly what was going on in the city. Wouldn't you like to know exactly what the people responded, how they responded? Here's what he says. It's chapter 22 of the book of Isaiah. He said, the people are here, are dying, but not by the sword. They're ready to die. They're on the rooftops looking out and see the Assyrian army, and they're weeping and wailing to God because they're about to lose their lives. Some of them, he says, have taken the disposition, and you'll recognize this because it is quoted in the New Testament. Let us eat and drink, tomorrow we're going to die. And it is chaos in the city because they know that the Assyrians have smashed every city that has come into their purview. You might ask the question also, why did Sennacherib break the treaty? Why did he break the covenant that he had made with Hezekiah? And historically, you might be able to find the answer pretty easily. Number one, as he goes south by southwest from Jerusalem, about 30 miles to the city of Lachish, he's headed to Egypt, and he is left with a large contingent of people who oppose him in his rear. That would be cutting off his lines of communication. Not only so, but he receives word that the king of Egypt, who is an Ethiopian by the name of Tirhakah, is on his way to fight him. That would be a dangerous situation to be caught in a pincer between Hezekiah and Tirhakah. Not only so, but he knew that there was a large contingent in Jerusalem that wanted to rely upon Egypt. Let's go to Egypt and let's ask them to help us against the Assyrians. What is Isaiah going to say about this? You can read it in chapter 30. Chapter 30 of Isaiah tells us, don't you dare lean upon Egypt. You're refusing to rely upon God Almighty. It's going to be like a reed. Leaning on a reed is going to stab you in the hand. There was a political party in Jerusalem, and Sennacherib knew it, that wanted to rely upon Egypt. So he sends a contingent of his army to surround the walls, and they come up for a parley with Hezekiah's men. And here's how the negotiation begins. You remember the Tartan is there from Sennacherib, the Rabshakeh, the chief captain, and also the Rabsaris, who is the chief eunuch. The Rabshakeh opens up negotiations. He says, you know that all of the cities that Assyria has conquered, there has been little resistance. And all of these cities we have conquered and smashed. And he names a group of cities, city-states, that have absolutely been destroyed. You can read about this in 2 Kings 18 and 19. All of these cities have been destroyed. Where are the gods? He said, why are you going to rely upon God? Where are the gods, for example, of Ivah, of Sepharvaim? Where are the gods of all these foreign countries? We have conquered everything. You are doing wrong to rely upon God. And is Hezekiah going to help you? No, Hezekiah is not going to help you. Just remember what Sennacherib had said, I shut him up like a bird in the cage. This is the mighty Assyrian army. But he makes a statement finally that you'll find perhaps interesting. That is, he said, God has sent me, your God, Jehovah God, has sent me here to conquer your city. Now that's interesting. Some historians speculate, well, the Rabshakeh must have been an apostate Jew because he spoke perfect Hebrew. He knew about the politics in the city. He knew about God. As a matter of fact, he even made this comment. He says, isn't it God, Jehovah God, that Hezekiah has destroyed all of his altars in the land of Judah? There he had some misinformation. What is interesting now takes place, and it shows weakness on the part of Eliakim, who is the head negotiator for Hezekiah. Listen to what he has to say. He says, please speak to us no more in the Hebrew language, but speak to us in the Aramaic, because the people on the wall can hear you speaking in the Hebrew language. That made the Rabshakeh mad. That is, in other words, a position of weakness. We don't want the people to hear what you're saying. The Rabshakeh is angered. He walks up closer, pokes out his chest. He speaks to the people on the wall. He says, don't let Hezekiah, speaking to them in perfect Hebrew, don't let him deceive you. You are going to die if you don't surrender to Assyria. He uses foul language. He uses crude humor. He speaks about what they're going to do to the people of Judah if they do not surrender. And he repeats himself, where are the gods of all of these nations and all of these city-states? Where are their gods? They're all destroyed. You are not going to stand if you don't surrender. You're going to die. Now, Hezekiah, the people are weeping, as we've already noted, Isaiah chapter 22. They're hearing all these words, and they're weeping and wringing their hands and crying out, and they're slain, as Isaiah said, not by the sword. They're slain. They're just dying. Basically, they just want to capitulate immediately. There's one man who maintains the cool in the city, and that man is good King Hezekiah. The negotiators come back in the city walls. He says, go send for Isaiah. Isaiah says, don't be fearful of the bragging boys of Assyria. They're going to hear news from another country. They'll return. They'll go back the way they came. And sure enough, the negotiations having broken down, the Tartan, the Rabshakeh, the Rabsaris, they go down to Lachish, now to once again negotiate with their own king what to do when the negotiations have broken down in Judah. And they have found that Sennacherib has already destroyed the city of Lachish. Now he's come to the city of Libnah. And here's what Sennacherib tells them. He says, you go back, you take more army, you surround the city walls, and you send this letter to Hezekiah. And the letter is, he's going to write it. He said, here's what the letter's going to say. You need to surrender now. If you do not, we're going to destroy your entire city, we're going to destroy your people, and we're going to torture everybody that's there. You need to surrender now. So Hezekiah takes the letter into the temple, the only place he could find refuge, in the temple of the Lord. And he lays out the letter just as the picture depicts. He lays out the letter before the Lord and asks the Lord, what are we going to do? Isaiah comes and joins him in the petition to God. How are we going to escape Sennacherib's hand? as he was praying to God, Isaiah receives the revelation from God and said, do not be worried, do not be concerned. He said, I am going to destroy the king of Assyria. I'm going to put a fish hook in his mouth and drag him back with a bit in his mouth also to the land of Assyria. From whence he came, he's going to go back home to Nineveh. And with that confidence, Hezekiah and Isaiah leave the temple. I don't know why, except for the fact that people are unbelievers. They do not believe the biblical account of what now occurs. You can read it in 2 Kings 19, 35 and 36. So, for example, the ancient Greek historian was named Herodotus. Herodotus says the mighty King Sennacherib was about to destroy the city of Jerusalem, but the army was infested by a number of rats, and they had a plague of the rats and the mice. And the rats and the mice ate the quivers of the Assyrian archers, and they ate all of the bowstrings so they couldn't shoot a bow. And then the plague destroyed many people, and they had to go back home. Herodotus says, well, there's even right now, standing in Rome, there is a statue to Vulcan the god. And he has in his right hand a mouse, and it represents what happened to the Assyrian army, the mouse. And it's interesting that people even today peddle the same lie. There is a school of thought today in biblical studies, no less, called biblical minimalism. Biblical minimalism is to say, this Bible we do not believe anything in it, we are unbelievers, unless it has been confirmed by historical or archaeological research. And only then will we accept a personage or an event that occurs. And they therefore discount what happened to the Assyrian army. What does the Bible say? We are told that an angel of death that night came and destroyed 185,000 of the Assyrians. And they left the next day. Sennacherib takes his army all the way back to Nineveh, and within a year he was murdered in the temple of his own gods by his sons. And his son Esarhaddon takes the throne. It is interesting to note what the Bible says of it in 2 Kings 19, 35 and 36. Very straightforward history that God destroyed them by an angel of death in one night. And it is celebrated by this famous poem by Lord Byron. You've heard of Lord Byron. It says the Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold. His cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold. The sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that host with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn has blown, that host on the morrow lay withered and strown. For the angel of death spread his wings o'er the blast and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. And the eyes of the sleepers waxed deadly and chill. The hearts but once heaved, and forever grew still. There lay the steed with his nostril all wide, but through it there rolled not the breath of his pride. The foam of his gasping lay white on the turf, and cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. There lay the rider, distorted and pale, with dew on his brow, rust on his mail. The tents were all silent, the banners alone, lances unlifted, the trumpet unblown. And the widows of Asher are loud in their wail, and idols are broke in the temple of Baal. The might of the Gentile, unsmote by the sword, has melted like snow in the glance of the Lord. What a great event in biblical history. It is not the case today that we can expect a miraculous deliverance in that sense. But Psalm 46 is written for us to rely upon God and God alone, no matter how deep and dark may be the circumstances. Whether death knocks on our door, as it has in this congregation recently, just this week. Whether or not we have turmoil in our lives and the family, whether we have turmoil in our country, whether we have turmoil in the world, we need to rely upon God because God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be moved, and the mountains be shaken into the heart of the seas. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, and the mountains tremble with the swelling thereof. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. God will help her. That right early. The nations raged, the kings were moved, but he utters his voice and the earth melted. Jehovah of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Psalm 46, 1 through 7. We still have the passage in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 4, and that is, there is something that overcomes the world, and that is our faith. Faith is the victory that overcomes the world. God is still with us even today. If you've been faithless, if your faith has been flagging and weak, then now's the time we will pray with you for you. We want you to come to the front right now where we stand and sing if you're subject to the Lord's invitation.